celebrating failures as an important step in coaching children towards resilience and creation. Hey, this is Moni Singh, an engineer, a creator, a mother, and a lifelong learner. Many people know me as Miss STEM, the founder of the STEM for Kids movement. I created this channel to help you raise your children, your students, for success in this ever transforming world laced with increasing digital influence. You watch these videos because you know that there's something more inside your kids. They got the Elon Musk type of talent hidden inside them. If you haven't done so, hit the subscribe button, and I share regularly. And as a subscriber, you have access to the practical tips, tools, and resources to raise resilient creators. So, failures are okay, and the feelings that come with those failures are also normal. Okay, so that's the number one point, is setting those expectations up front, and that's the key. Number two, you want to acknowledge children's feelings. And as we saw, the immediate reaction to adversities is emotional. So you can acknowledge by saying, I see you're unhappy because this project isn't working the way you wanted it to. What you're feeling is normal. So now you're in the moment, right? In the moment. And this is the time when people get in very, they can get into weird situations. And the only thing you can do at that point is first to acknowledge their feeling. You want to have them calm down. So if you think about it, if a child says I'm hurt and they have a cut and it's bleeding, what's the first thing you do? You first have to clean that, put some ointment and then band-aid it, right? So that's your step here. They are hurting emotionally, and so you have to put a band-aid, and that band-aid really is to acknowledge that feeling. And then you show them some ways to dissipate that negative energy. And one of the best things that work is some sort of a physical activity. So maybe letting them jump up and down, dancing, just going and playing for a little bit. Just doing something physical works the best in these situations. And we'll get into this part later as we continue with our trainings on some more ways on how you can get that bandit going. Now, once the emotions are dealt with, that's when you get into celebrating those failures. So, you know how we celebrate successes, right? You want to develop a mindset of celebrating failures. Why? Think of the word fail, FAIL, as the first attempt in learning. And this, by the way, comes courtesy Abdul PJ Kalam, who is a former president of India. So you're looking at a failure as one more step closer towards success. If you think about it, it's not really a failure, because when they hit a roadblock, something didn't work, they just found a way in which it does not work. And even that's success. If you had 10 ways in front of you and you figured out that 8 of them don't work, that's success. Now you only have 2 more to check, right? So that's really important mindset to develop from early on in children. Thomas Edison has been famously quoted that when he was trying to find the right filament for the light bulb, he tried so many different materials to make the filament of the light bulb, including his own hair. And none of those worked. After 10,000 attempts like that, he kept failing. And so somebody asked him, Mr. Edison, you failed so many times. Don't you feel miserable? Edison replied, no, I have not failed. I have just found 10,000 ways in which this will not work. It is so empowering. You just found a way that it does not work, and that's success. And that's what you want to let the children know. Hey, you just found something that shows what does not work. Great job, right? That's really important. Give them the kudos. So when a child or a group of children are working on a project, say an engineering design project, and they hit a roadblock, You make it a point of success and you say, hey, listen, you just found a way in which it does not work. Kudos to you. And then you take it and you say, okay, now let's look at it. Let's see what's really happening here. Let's try and understand as a group and brainstorm ideas for a design change. If you're in a classroom setting, make it a central activity. You bring that project to the center and bring the attention of the entire class and say, hey, let's look at this project and see what's happening. What could be possible reasons that this isn't working the way we want it to? What are some ways in which we can improve it? It's a learning opportunity and treat it as such. Most learning happens when you are dealing with these kinds of adversities, because that's when you really get to the right thinking around what works and what does not work. So, to give you an example, in one of our programs, we were talking with the kids about the spinning motion, things going round and round. And one of the projects that they had to do, very simple one, was to make a spin top using simple materials. So they had cardboard that they had to cut out into a circle shape and then make a hole in the center, put a pencil or something like a pencil through it. And then that's it, right? You have a very simple spin top ready to go. Now, as the kids were making this project and they were working in teams, of course, there were few groups who actually had their perfect spin tops and everything was going fine. But then there were some groups which, for them, this was just like the spin top would wobble and then just fall over. And wobbling, that was one of the big issues that many groups were facing. So what we did is, again, you go through those steps, right? So of course, before we began that project, we say, okay, these things can happen. When they happen, it's all okay. So that was something you did beforehand. When you are in the moment and these failures are happening, then what do? You first acknowledge the feelings that these children or the groups are feeling, because they are in a very tough situation here. They are seeing some of these other groups succeeding. They made their perfect spin tops, and these children whose designs and creations are not working are not in a very good space right now. So you show empathy and again remind them that that's all normal, and you apply that band-aid we talked about before. Um, and the next piece is, now you come into the stage of celebrating failures, right? So we would bring that and say, okay, now let's look at it, right? What's happening with the spin top? And would actually bring some of the more or less perfect, or the spin tops that were working fine, and put them next to the ones that are not working fine and say, okay, let's see what are some differences that we notice. What could be going wrong? And as children start to look at those creations, and now you start seeing the light bulbs go off, right? And now we are getting some suggestions like, oh, I see that this one that's working really nicely, the cardboard is cut in a very nice circular shape, whereas this one is a little bit not so uniform and uniformly cut. Sometimes the shape is probably looking like more like a square than a circle, or it's very haphazardly cut. So could that be creating this whole issue? Possible. So now we have one hypothesis, right? That maybe the shape of the cardboard, the way it's being cut, is creating some issues. So what do you do next? You go and try that out, right? Then there were some other hypotheses. There's another one which said, oh, I noticed that in the good one, we see the hole is right in the center of the circle. But in this one, which is wobbling, the hole is actually not centered. It's actually more towards one side. And maybe that's what's creating that wobble effect. Possible, right? And again, so that's the second hypothesis. And once the teams kind of discuss all these ideas, then they can go back to their tables and work it out and see, which hypothesis is successful in them designing their perfect spin tops. So that's the way. This was a simple example, but these are your 3 steps to go through and celebrate those failures, setting upfront expectations, dealing with emotions when you are in when the children are in the moment of adversity, and then finally celebrating the failures and seeking out solutions. Moni Singh signing off. Hey, now that you have watched this or heard what I just shared, go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet. And also, depending on which platform you're on, go ahead and give me a 5-star rating or like and comment. And also share this resource with your friends and relatives so that they can also get their hands on all this valuable information that I'm sharing. Now, one more thing, I am giving away my 7 C's blueprint for raising successful children. So if you have not gotten a copy yet, go ahead and do that right away. You can go to www.raisingresilientcreators.com. The link is down in the description. So go ahead, click on it and get that resource. It's a very valuable resource that can help you with your priority of getting your children on the pathway towards success. So with that, again, subscribe to the channel and go ahead and get that resource right away.